Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be reviewing the IGPSPORT iGS630 GPS cycling computer. Marketed as the one for all, the new iGS630 is IGPSPORT's new flagship cycling computer. The iGS630 was developed to be an easy-to-use cycling computer for beginner to expert cyclists and boasts a variety of features such as color screen, full navigation, and smart trainer compatibility. Packaging-wise, you can see it's pretty neat and tidy. Cardboard box, IGPSPORT's orange color that goes up and around with the specs written on back. This is a Chinese company, so you can see some of the phrasing here is a little bit weird. It says powerful, colorful, which is a little bit strange, but otherwise easy to read. So we'll go ahead and take this out of a package. It's much more like a cell phone package, so you have an external sleeve that slides out, and then the main box, which is a folding design, on the inside. So once you have the sleeve off, you can see it has a two-piece design with a magnetic clasp here. So pretty nice given the size of IGPSPORT being a fairly small company. So let's go over the specs as I open it up. Retail price on this is $219.99 currently. It boasts a 2.8-inch color screen, has a 240 by 40 pixel resolution, and it's an LCD TFT screen. It has full navigation with all 5 GPS compatibilities, so you can use this around the world and download maps from around the world as well. You have full navigation, so you can actually use pre-set up routes or do points of interest. 35-hour battery life with a 1300 milliamp battery inside, and you have USB Type-C charging, which is really nice to see here, so nice modern interface. And you have a Garmin quarter turn style mount, so you can use this with a variety of third-party mounts right out of the box. In terms of what comes with it, again, you can see really nice packaging. You have this nice little holder piece, a separate little box here for the accessories, and then additional specs written on the inside. So it feels really special, despite still being quite affordable. You have a large user manual, and this is multiple languages. And then you can see inside here, we also have a little bag of goodies. So we have a little handlebar mount, so standard rubber style. So you can see the standard puck with the O-ring design. So you just crisscross them. You have a USB Type-C charging cable. And you even have a little screen protector to keep this clean and protected, as well as this lanyard, which you can use as a tether around the computer to prevent it from flying off just in case. Now let's take a look at the weight of the iGS630. So the computer by itself, without that screen protector on there, is 88 grams, while the simple handlebar mount with the rubber pad behind it comes in at 10 grams. The iGS630 has a standard rectangular profile with a laminated glass screen on top. It's glossy, and you can see has standard size bezels along the corners. You have beveled corners along the edges, which give it a little bit thinner profile. The profile thickness on this is only 16.5 millimeters, so still fairly thin and really dominated by the internal battery, which gives you that longer battery life. You can see it is a color screen. It's non-touch screen, which is a little bit strange, but as with Wahoo, they decided to go higher end, offer all the features, but keep the screen easy to use and all the navigation through the 6 buttons along the edges. So you can navigate everything and not worry about getting a greasy screen or water droplets or any other issue you'd get while riding. It has the ambient light sensor as well, so you can see that up here. And that'll automatically adjust the brightness of the screen if you enable that feature. IGPSPORT written on the front, a standard Garmin base. And this is really nice, so it's a quarter turn style mount. So you put it in, and then 45-degree rotation locks in. You get a standard handlebar mount, which is pretty cheap. I'd highly recommend getting their M80 out front mount or any out front mount from other brands. So you can see it'll just slide in, lock into place. And this will put it right in front of your handlebars for a much sleeker look. This one's plastic too, so pretty cheap. So a good option if you're looking for out front mount. You also have USB Type-C charging, which is really nice. A lot of brands are still using micro USB, so it's good to see IGPSPORT embrace USB-C. And it supports USB-C to C charging as well. And then you can see each of the 6 buttons have a really nice label. So this is your menu option, up, down, labels printed on top of the screen as well to remind you what they are, a lap button, start and stop an activity, and then the power button on here as well as a return. So pretty simple interface overall. Now let's take a look at the setup of the GPS computer. You're gonna have a couple prompts when you first turn it on. You wanna select language. There are 6 buttons on here, but they're actually pretty easy to use because you have up and down, confirmation on the top, and then the other ones are very specific to starting and stopping a ride, doing a lap, or returning. So we'll go to English, confirm. Here you can see a time zone setting, so you can adjust that. Leave it at 0 for now. And then a little QR code to download the app. Then you can say your units. You can set the elevation units, temperature, and that's about it. So now you're essentially ready to ride. You can obviously connect sensors, which you want to do first. So it's not a touchscreen, so you're very tempted to click on something, but you actually have to use the up and down arrows to navigate. Go to settings, sensor, add. You can pick the type. And then you can see if you just wake up your sensor, should find it pretty quickly. So you can see found it. And again, you want to click on it with your hand, but you actually have to use the side buttons. It will sync up to it, and that's about it. So if you have more sensor, you just keep repeating that process. Back button to go back. You can do the phone pairing, themes, which is pretty interesting here. You can actually change the home page. You can change the colors too, but they all look the same on the screen. It's not that vivid. So most of these look the same, and it's very annoying to navigate as you have to go all the way row by row. So we'll just go back. You can change the themes here. So the theme is basically the home page. So if you click back, so that's your home page. If you click back again, you get this kind of overview, which is sensors, weather, notification, if that's connected via the app. You can see this theme is very strange. It almost looks like a phone with one item here. So we'll go ahead and change that back. The clicking on here is also annoying. It's similar to the other IGPSPORT devices, and it's just a little bit loud compared to other devices we've used. You can do power management, user profile. So this is like the heart rate zone, weight. So you can fill those out. System settings, so the backlight. So you can actually change that. It's odd, they actually turn off the default. This is the ambient light sensor. But you can see with it on, if I cover it up, I'll basically turn on to brighter. And then when you release, it'll dim out. You can adjust the settings. Sound, you can turn it off, which is nice. Alerts, so everything you need to do, and you can always change the units later. So if you didn't do it correctly on the first screen. And then when you're ready to ride, you essentially press play, and it'll take you to the run screen. Press play again to record. You also probably want to configure your screens. So there are different profiles. So there are 4 default profiles, and these have some configuration details for each of them. So we'll click the road one. You can enable, disable it. Only one is enabled by default. This really should say default. You can adjust the pages. It comes with far too many pages, honestly, for the amount of data that's here. So if we go to one page, you can enable, disable them. You can move them up and down, which is a little bit weird. So that's what the little button here is, the indicator. So if I change that, you can see it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a little strange to be able to do this. You don't typically have this option of moving pages around, but it's there. And then on the field, you can reconfigure the data display. So this is 6 items. You can keep going up, and for each one of them, you have 2 configurations. So we can have 1 item all the way up to 10. So you can do quite a bit of data here, and this supports graphical views as well, which is really nice and something you see only with higher end devices. So you can figure out how many you want, select it, and then on each one of them, you can go click on it. It has a popular setting, which gives you some of the quick ones. And then you can do all the other ones. So variations of speed. So lap speeds, current speeds, timers, power rate. Power you can do tons of variations on. So everything you expect from a higher end computer, different averaging, FTP zones, graphical views, even shifting. So you can connect radar, you can connect the DI2. And with each release of the software, they keep adding a couple more features. So definitely easy to use, and even though it's not a touchscreen, it's pretty easy to navigate through. Now let's take a look at the IGPSPORT app. Despite being a smaller company, they actually have a full app, which is kind of impressive, dedicated just to their devices. You have 4 tabs on the bottom. You have a home page, which shows you your rides, activity view, which gives you, again, more data, doing data analysis, calendar view, a device page where you can connect different computers, and a little profile page. This is where you can actually follow other people on the app, look at your cycling rank, so you can kind of do some more social stuff here. For a device, let's go ahead and add it. You can see you have a quick select for some popular items underneath it. Quickly found it. So we'll select that. Then it should pair pretty quickly. Obviously you want to use the app to configure the device because it is quicker having a touchscreen versus the non-touchscreen version. So once we've done the basic setting, now you can see we're connected. We can do firmware updates. We can change the page layout. We can even add profiles. So this is what you can't do on the app. You can actually add more. Give it its own name. So this is the bike profiles. And you can see some inconsistencies with the app. Capitalization is not the same. And then this is one of my favorite pop-ups, delete or not, which again, they just lack some of the staffing and UX people to make this a lot more polished. Some of the wording is very weird, pattern management, where it really should be profile names. There are things you can do the page settings. So this is the actual ride view. So if you jump into these pages, you can reconfigure these. Now these are very confusing. So the way they actually have it set up is I can delete stuff, and then I can add it, but you don't know where you're adding it to. So if I add, and then add another one, you can see it's a lot quicker, but you don't know where it's going to go. It just kind of adds it to the bottom. So you can't really change the configuration quickly. So it's better to actually use the app, the actual GPS computer, set up the number of items, and then come back here and then fine tune it. So it's kind of weird that it's not set up correctly. So I don't really recommend using this too much, except for once you have the basic layout set up to come back and then customize. So this is much faster versus the using the buttons on the device. So tons of options here, and then with each data update or firmware update, they're gonna add more features. You can access a lot of the settings, so the alerts, which I've always found a little bit weird, so it can tell you if you're going too fast, too far. Some basic configuration options, so start automatically, auto pause, which you probably want on. And a lot of the other configurations, so units and everything else. But again, it's just not that polished, so if you wanna add routes, for example, so if you wanna do a ride, you actually have to go through here, click routes, and then you can see I have some routes on here, and I can upload it. So I can do send device, and it should send it. But again, just some weird inconsistencies. What is number 10917, and why am I seeing it? So they can definitely polish this, but overall it does work. It's just not as polished as even say the Bryton devices. So you just have to be aware that it's a lot more clumsy. Send up routes is very difficult. And same thing with workouts. Now let's take the IGP630 on the road. As you can see here, when you first turn it on, you get a nice color splash screen. This actually matches the one on the app, so it makes it look a little bit more polished. The main screen, depending on your theme, will have these 6 items. And if you want to just start riding, you press play. It'll take you to the data display screen, and you press play again. It'll do the recording. For this ride, we're going to do a pre-recorded route. So I'm going to go navigation, select routes, and then pick the named one. So you have to be careful here. As you can see, once you've selected it, all you see is distance and an overview with no zoom capability or altitude graph. So you got to be careful if you have a lot of similar routes. You probably want to just not upload a device or delete it from the device. Once you've selected it, you're pretty much ready to ride. You can see the total distance to the destination. and then a dotted blue line on the map to indicate the route. There is no rerouting here, so if your start point's not your actual start point, you're gonna have to find your way. Once you're riding, it's pretty simple to use, and you have all the data display screens, as well as an altitude graph. And what's weird about the altitude graph, this is not the upcoming altitude for your route. It's actually your previous one, so it's the historical data, and that's not really helpful. So typically you want to see what's coming up ahead so you could kind of gauge your progress or be prepared for a big climb. But instead here it's just historical. Otherwise, the navigation and the other pages are pretty simple. So you can have up to 10 items per page, reordered as you want. The navigation here is not too bad either. You can see here on any other page but the map, you get a black background, an arrow, and the number of feet remaining or miles. What's a little confusing here is no schematic, so you just get a left-right arrow and no real cross route, street names, or schematic of that intersection. You can also see here there's a bit of a bug with the navigation. If you have an out and back loop like we're doing here, it will quickly reroute you back to the start thinking you've already done the rest of the route. So it's really forgiving in that sense if you just want to turn around and go home. It'll help you find your route back, but if you want to complete the route, you have to be careful to make sure you're actually on the route. So you can see here, it figured it out. I'm actually still on the route, so it's taking me through the correct way, but definitely confusing. But again, something that could be solved with a software release. The other issue that could be solved with software release are these false turns. So as you can see here, it's showing me a right turn, and then it'll show me a left turn, but this is just a switchback on a one-lane mountain road. So there's actually no intersections here, so this shouldn't show you. But otherwise, the navigation is simple. It's big, large letters, and there is no touchscreen, so you can only zoom in and out of the map by pressing that return button, and it'll go from this closer view to a really far back view, and then all the way back. And the computer itself, pretty simple to set up. It gets GPS quickly, and we didn't have any issues with dropout or sensor dropout. 30 with some other computers on the market. We have the IGPSPORT iGS630, which we previously reviewed on the left. So a much more affordable cycling computer. Very similar style, but obviously smaller, non-color screen, no map view, and a lot less features. Obviously the iGS630 is a much higher end computer and nearly double the price, but you can see visually they're very similar with the rectangular designs, the buttons on the bottom and the beveling with the little textures on the edges as well. Both have Garmin bases with the USB Type-C charging as well. The iGS630 is a much more beginner friendly one. So you can see very basic setup where you can see your sensors, and you can't really adjust anything. With the iGS630, you can't do much, but with the iGS630, you can actually rearrange everything down to the colors and multiple bike profiles. So it really depends on what you're looking for. If you want more features, then the 630 is a great option. But if you need something more basic and budget friendly, then their lower end 320 is a good option as well. There's other computers like the CYCPLUS M2 here. So you can see round display, which is kind of cool. And very simple, but again, lower end computer. So you can just simply cycle through the features, but you can't actually readjust anything. But it is round, which looks kind of cool. And no map view, no navigation, just basic sensor display. In terms of higher end computers, this is much more compatible with something like the Bryton Rider series. This is the 750. You can see similar size on these. So this one's the 2.8 inch screen and pretty close to, I believe, a 2.7 or 2.4. So similar size overall. The Brytons have their own mount, which is slightly different than the Garmin, with the thicker base, which is a little bit annoying, so you do need an adapter. Now let's go over the pros and cons for the iGS630. What you like about it is that it's an intuitive button setup. Even though it's not a touchscreen, it's pretty easy to navigate, and you don't have to reference the manual to figure out how to do that. It's also highly configurable in terms of the data display, and you can rearrange the layouts, the number of items per pages, the order, and even add graphical elements like rings and charts. You also have a nice color screen with a strong backlight that's easy to use during the day or the night. Some of the negatives for the computer is the fact that the navigation is confusing. It can easily get confused and reroute you back home, or generate false turns as we saw with our rides. The app can also be clumsy to use at times. Some of the English translations don't make that much sense, such as pattern navigation for the profile management, and some of the workflows are clumsy. So setting up a route actually requires connecting the device, clicking on routes on the device page, before you can actually set up a ride. Also, the current version lacks rerouting capability, so if you go off route, it'll just show you an arrow and won't really help you get back even if you have your cell phone connected. Taking everything into account, we give the iGS630 an 8.0 out of 10. It's a nice GPS computer with great hardware, but just lacks the refinement that some of the competitors have. Thanks for watching this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can see more content from us on our website at thesweetcyclist.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at thesweetcyclist. This is The Sweet Cyclist reminding you to enjoy the ride.